All right, let's look now at these fossils, especially, I'm going to start at the very bottom layer of the geologic column, right? Because these are the ones that evolved first millions and millions of years ago. That's what we're told.
Yes, we call it the Precambrian explosion.
Okay.
Now, don't get the idea of a dynamite explosion. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a tremendous explosion of new creatures appearing in the fossil record.
Okay.
Now, I like what you use there, the bottom layers.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to be more scientific, we can say the Precambrian and Cambrian layers. But if you can't remember that, I do like you do, the bottom layers. That makes it really simple and easy. Let's keep science easy there.
All right.
Now, what's so important down there at the bottom layers? Well, what we find down there are fossils of single cells. Yes, we find fossil imprints of single cells. Then we find fossils of very complex creatures like trilobites, have a very complex eye mechanism. We find seashells, jellyfish, and even some fish down there. Now, that's interesting. But what's more interesting is what we don't find, and this is what they don't teach in the textbooks.
Okay.
What we don't find down there are any transitions from a single cell up to all those complex creatures. Almost every body shape shows up there. They use a fancy word like phyla. We'll just say body shapes. I like simple. They all show up with no real transitions. It's as if, this might surprise you, they were all created after their kind. It's exactly what we see in the fossil record down there.
Okay.
We win the fossil record right there. They
So-
lose. The evolutionists lose.
This Cambrian, it goes Precambrian, Cambrian. If you were to look at the very lowest layers and look at the animals in those layers, you're saying we would find single-celled organisms, no evolution taking place, but jumbled up with those single-celled organisms are completely fully formed fossils of things like trilobites with compound eyes, with complex muscular systems and skeletal systems. We would find things like shells of all shapes and kinds. And it seems that it's skewed towards marine life. Is that because marine life developed first millions of years ago? Or why would we see more marine life in the bottom layers?
Well, that goes to the flood.
Okay.
Now, we talk about this tremendous geologic column in there, in this nicely ordered fashion. That's not what we find.
Okay.
In other words, the observable evidence does not agree with what we see in our textbooks. Because what would a worldwide flood do? Well, we've got these great tectonic movements in there.
Okay.
Volcanism going on over there. And all these tectonic movements would cause what we call tsunamis.
Okay.
It's one of those hard words to spell.
Tsunamis, yes.
Doesn't start with an S. The tsunamis, underwater tidal waves is what they are. Going along the bottom of those oceans at tremendous speeds, guess what they're doing? Burying marine creatures.
Oh.
They're at the lowest level, so they're being buried first.
Yeah.
So that's what we'd expect to find down there.
The sediments on the bottoms of the ocean, right, are being stirred up with these waves, and it's burying creatures very rapidly, so rapidly that it preserves their shape. It preserves all of the detail.
Yes.
And you're saying that's exactly what we would expect if the Bible is true.
And that's what we find down there, too.
Okay.
So the observational evidence matches what a flood would do.
I love it.
Then we have the creatures that live in part-time on land and part sea. They should come next. Called amphibians. Then the most mobile creatures we should find on the top. And we should also find them all mixed around in places and out of order. Guess what? That's exactly what we observe. It's not this nice, neat little column. We find mammals mixed with fish creatures. We find all sorts of out of place and mixed creatures, not this nice, neat little picture presented in the textbooks.